Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about Romanticism. Wait, is that how I should begin? That's what my daughter said people say on YouTube. In any event, today, Romanticism. So what are we talking about when we say Romanticism? We're not referring to love and romance and hearts and flowers. We're talking about a movement in the arts, so literature and music during the 19th century, so the 1800s. And it's characterized by what are often called the five I's. We're going to take a deeper dive into each of these five concepts right now. So, one of these five I's is imagination. It was valued by artists at the time over reason. It was a backlash against what's called the rationalism that characterized the period of time that came before this, called the Age of Reason. This period was also called the Neo-Classical period, which just is a fancy way of saying like the new classical period, this kind of revival of these old classic ideas. Imagination was considered necessary for creating all kinds of art. And the British writer Samuel Taylor Coleridge called imagination intellectual intuition. A few more I words for you there. But speaking of intuition, it's the next of our five I's, and the Romantics placed value on intuition or feeling and instincts, again, over reason. The British Romantic writer William Wordsworth described poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. And in this, he's talking about kind of that gut feeling that we get, what we call intuition. The next of our five I's is idealism. And this is really the concept that we can make the world a better place. Idealism refers to any theory that emphasizes the spirit, the mind, or language over matter, over the thing. It emphasizes that thought has a crucial role in making the world the way that it is. Next is inspiration. During the Romantic period, the artist was really seen as a kind of inspired creator. She wasn't, or he wasn't, a kind of technical master. So the notion of inspiration emphasizes going with the moment, being spontaneous, not so much precision or mastery. Finally, individuality. So during the Romantic period, the kind of individual person was really valued. This was pretty progressive thinking. But if you think about the time period, so again, we're talking about the 1800s, you have really the beginning of a women's rights movement. And also, you have people advocating for the abolition of slavery. Both of these were movements that focused on individuality and valuing the person. One of the later Romantics, Walt Whitman, and he was American, he wrote this epic length poem called Song of Myself. So even the title there tells you that he, values himself and sees himself as an individual. But it begins, I celebrate myself. He says, in fact, I celebrate myself and sing myself. And what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me, as good belongs to you. So we're all individuals, but we're also all connected. And this was an important concept for the Romantics. So where did Romanticism come from? It followed the start of the French Revolution, and the revolution stretched from 1789 to 1799, which of course followed the American Revolution. And it's really marked by the publication of both William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge's book of poems called Lyrical Ballads, which was published in 1792. This is really considered the beginning of literary romanticism, and it took root in England and then kind of came across the pond, as they say, to the United States. So we have here an example of neoclassical art. This is called The Oath of the Horatii by Jacques-Louis David. He was a French painter. But I give this to you as an example of kind of the old way, right? The pre-Romanticism kind of thinking in art. Here you see really rigid lines, very clear depth, lots of symmetry. If you look at the stance of the soldiers on the left-hand side, you know, the way that they're standing, their legs, their arms, the blades of the swords in the hand of the man wearing kind of the red garment. Although there's a kind of, you know, draping and lusciousness to the colors and the fabrics, there's also lots of sharpness and lots of straight lines. And this is kind of in line with the rigidity of the neoclassical period that preceded the Romantic period. As we move into the Romantic period, you get landscapes like this one by Thomas Cole. This is called View from Mount Holyoke, or the Oxbow, and that refers to the shape of the river there. So Thomas Cole was of the Hudson River School, and you might recognize Hudson River from Rip Van Winkle. That's where that story took place, and where a lot of artists at the time were creating their art, whether it was literature or visual arts. And here, by contrast to the previous piece, you have this beautiful landscape. You have this, you know, the shape of the winding river, this kind of craggy tree in the foreground that's not really a perfectly straight line. You have this kind of storminess and kind of this kind of ethereal quality to the lighting and the colors. It's much more individualistic and exotic than the Oath of the Horatii piece by David in the previous slide. So what's going on in literature? In addition to the beauty of the natural landscape and the beauty of the individual person, you also have the Gothic, which is happening at the same time, which is a pretty different sensibility. We'll get to the Gothic in a bit, but essentially, with this appreciation of individuality and what people are capable of, there was also this recognition that people can be pretty dark as well. So you have writers like Nathaniel Hawthorne and Edgar Allan Poe writing during the Romantic period. You also have the growth of something called transcendentalism. And the transcendentalists believed that you could essentially transcend, nature and existence and experience a kind of divine spirit, and that divine spirit was in all of nature and running through every living being, so animals and people as well. Some attitudes and tendencies of the Romantic period. These are really important and traits that you can see in Rip Van Winkle, for instance. So you have in the Romantic authors and in many of the characters that they write a distrust of civilization or the city. And we see that in Rip when he moves, into the kind of the woods, into the mountains to escape his wife, who represents the kind of the domestic, right? Like you also have this strong sense of nostalgia, this kind of longing for the past, this notion that things used to be better. With the Romantics, you also have this focus on individual freedom, which of course you can see goes hand in hand with individuality. A love of nature and the natural world, and an interest in the supernatural. So in a lot of Romantic stories, you have things that maybe can't really happen, right? So in Rip Van Winkle, that's Rip kind of meeting with these ghost gnome figures and falling asleep for 20 years. A lot of characters during the Romantic period in literature make journeys into nature. And Coleridge said that we needed to practice a willful suspension of disbelief. So basically, you need to just play the believing game when something wacky happens. So weird stuff happens in lots of literature, like in Rip Van Winkle when he meets the ghosts and sleeps for 20 years. Particularly in the American novel and also in short stories like Rip Van Winkle, you have the wilderness experience, you have this kind of idealizing of the frontier, this notion that there's something better beyond. And at this time, you have a lot of westward expansion, which led to a really strong nationalist spirit. You know, this land, we're entitled to it, and we're going to continue to move west and claim it. This is really when the Manifest Destiny was born. The romantic hero. He's youthful and innocent, so think like Rip, how he likes to play with children. The romantic hero loves nature. He distrusts civilization and women who really represent that civilization in the domestic kind of home sphere. And the romantic hero kind of quests for this higher truth, which he seeks in the natural world. All right, so here we are back to the Hudson River School. And you had artists in the Hudson River Valley in New York, where Rip Van Winkle takes place. We're going to ask you to visit the website called Explore Thomas Cole and to examine the following paintings listed here. All of these were created by Cole. So View on the Catskill, Early Autumn. The Voyage of Life series. This is 4 paintings. One called Mount Etna from Taormina, Sicily. A View of the Two Lakes and Mountain House, and Kindred Spirits. And so your task here is really to make note of the romantic features that you see in these works of art, so that we can begin to familiarize ourselves with what Romanticism looks like, so that as we move into more romantic pieces of literature, that you can really comfortably and confidently recognize those in the text and begin to make connections between various romantic texts. So there's a little introduction to Romanticism for you. Coming soon is the Gothic. Thanks.